After hearing a little girl's heartbreaking plea to save her brother, this billionaire's amazing. It was one of those chilly Cedar Grove evenings, where the brisk wind seemed to carry whispers of hope and despair simultaneously. Inside the community center, laughter mixed with the aroma of homemade chili. But amidst the smiles, little Mia sat with worry creasing her brow. Her eyes sparkled with the innocence of a 7-year-old, yet felt heavy with a burden far beyond her years. That night was a fundraiser, a chance for Cedar Grove to unite and lift each other up. But Mia had come seeking something much more precious: help for her big brother, Kyle. As her father Jake moved from car to car in his mechanic shop, fixing engines and tires, he also worked tirelessly to hold their family together after losing his beloved wife not so long ago. Each day was a battle, but for his kids, he poured all he had into the man they needed him to be. As the fundraiser progressed, Mia felt a pull to the stage. She had watched her father lose the light in his eyes after her mother's illness, and now, she felt a fire urging her to fight for Kyle. With a determined heart, she climbed the steps, her slight frame casting a long shadow in the overhead light. The microphone almost swallowed her little voice, but when she spoke, it pierced the hearts of everyone listening. "Please," she began, fighting back tears, "my brother is sick. We need help to save him. It's not fair he doesn't get the care he deserves just because we don't have enough money." Jake's chest tightened as he heard her words. He couldn't help but feel the weight of her plea. Muffled gasps filled the room as her vulnerability melted icy walls around the listeners. Eyes widened, and murmurs buzzed through the crowd. For a moment, the world seemed to stand still, drawing everyone near, including a man at the back, Richard. Once a childhood friend of Jake's estranged father, Richard had forgotten the taste of small-town life, buried under wealth and luxury. Tonight, it felt as if he had awoken from a long slumber, pulled by Mia's passion. But as he fought the stirrings of empathy within him, he was keenly aware of the resentment brewing around him, murmurs darting from neighbor to neighbor. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." As tension crackled, Richard moved forward, ready to lend support. But old wounds pierced Jake's heart. The rift between their class and values felt like a chasm, not just a divide, but a wall built over the years of neglect and misunderstanding. The community's eye shifts from compassion to judgment created confusion, igniting a fiery storm of resistance against the deep pockets of Richard's wealth. Would they accept his help? Would he even dare to offer it? In that moment, smelling the mingled sense of hope and bitterness, Jake and Richard were uncertain. Despite their tumultuous backgrounds, they both carried pain. Both had lost his family falling apart. Richard detached from a life he'd once known. Yet, deep inside, as they eyed one another, a flicker of shared understanding ignited. Amidst the swirling chaos of odds against them, one thing lingered. The fate of Kyle hung in the balance, perched precariously on the line of pride and necessity. Could they bridge this unyielding gap? Or would the weight of their pasts crush the very thing Mia dared to fight for? For this small town, a moment of reckoning loomed nearby. Richard's heart raced as he stepped closer to the center of the room, uncertainty clawing at his resolve. Each stride forward felt like a step into the eye of a storm. He could see Mia's tiny form still trembling on the stage, her pale face the mirror of desperation. What was he even doing? Miles of comfort and abundance separated him from this community. Yet here he was, compelled by a child's pain. "Ladies and gentlemen," Richard spoke, his own voice shaky, "I believe I can help." A collective gasp erupted, filling the air with tension. All eyes darted from Mia to Richard and back again, disbelief etched on faces. Jake's breath seized in his throat. The man he had once known, the boy who had played in their neighborhood, now stood draped in a suit worth more than their house. "You?" Someone from the crowd spat out, a voice laced with accusation. You think you can swoop in and save the day? You don't know the first thing about us. Richard felt the weight of those words, each one a stone thrown at him. It stung not because they were untrue, but because he had spent so long trying to erase the poor boy he once was. I may not know your struggles, but I see the need, he replied, voice firm yet vulnerable. Mia just shared a heartbreaking story. I'm willing to contribute to help Kyle. Jake clenched his fists tightly, grappling with anger and disdain. How could Richard think he could just jump in when he had walked away from this life so long ago? The arrogance infuriated him. But then he glanced back at Mia. Her hopeful eyes were scanning the crowd, filled with anticipation. Mia, he called gently, his heart softening against the sharpness of his thoughts. What do you want? With renewed courage, Mia faced Richard. If you really want to help Kyle, she said, her voice wavering but determined, you need to help my dad too, he works hard, and he needs to know it's okay to ask for help. Richard looked at Jake, analyzing his weariness and the pain etched across his face. The room went silent, a shared understanding settling like dust in the aftermath of a storm. Could they truly move forward together? A spark ignited in Richard's chest, mixing with the cold tendrils of fear and familiar resentment. I promise I will help you, he said, too loudly, as if he might convince himself along with the crowd. But I need you to let me be part of this. Please, I can't do this without your trust. Jake's head spun. The very idea of accepting help from Richard felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. Would it be a leap of faith, or a plunge into betrayal? Mia stepped down from the stage, her small hand reaching up to clasp Jake's. Daddy. We need this. The hope in her voice melted the icy barrier Jake had built. He looked around at the neighbors, friends, and a community that had weathered storms together. He felt their supportive gazes and near imperceptible nods. But still, doubt lingered. Could he truly trust Richard? Would the past repeat itself, wealth against broken lives? Let us take it one step at a time. Jake finally allowed, feeling the warmth of Mia's tiny fingers in his grip. Richard's shoulders relaxed for the first time, the tension releasing slowly as he nodded. Thank you. I'll make sure to honor your wishes. But no sooner had those hopeful words settled than the loud crash of a door shattered the atmosphere. A frantic figure stormed into the community center, breathless. Did someone say save a life? Because we need to talk about Kyle right now. Everyone's heads turned towards the chaos, hearts pounding with renewed anxiety and curiosity. Who was this person, and what truth were they bringing with them? In that moment, as the room buzzed with anticipation, the next chapter of the story began to unfold. Moved with uneasy haste, the figure that rushed in was a woman, tall and wild-haired, her eyes wide with urgency. She caught her breath for a moment, scanning the crowd before landing on Richard, her voice sharp and pleading. I'm Billy, Kyle's nurse. We need to act fast or we might lose him. A strangled gasp escaped from the crowd, followed by a wave of hushed whispers. Mia's hand gripped Jake's tighter. He could feel her small body tremble beside him, caught between fear and hope. Lose him? Richard echoed, his voice trembling with disbelief. What do you mean? Billy stepped forward, her brow furrowed in determination. Kyle needs a special treatment that's come up unexpectedly. Without it, his chances of surviving the next few weeks drop dramatically. We thought we had more time, but now her voice faltered, the weight of her words palpable. Jake's heart dropped. He had hoped for good news, a way to breathe life back into the shattered pieces of their existence. But this was nightmare fuel. How much does it cost? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. More than most can afford, Billy replied, her tone steady, yet infused with a soft urgency pleading for understanding. But I know there are local charities, resources we can tap into, but we need people willing to fight for him. Richard's mind raced. Just moments ago, he had stood, filled with hope, ready to embrace a community's trust. Now, the magnitude of the situation loomed larger than ever before. I can help, he said, each word laced with determination. But this was no longer just about him. We need to rally everyone. Jake felt a wave of conflicting emotions wash over him. His instinct screamed against trusting Richard. But the battle for Kyle's life wove an unexpected bond, one that made Jake's anger seem petty. Could he really push aside years of resentment? Mia, Jake turned, taking her tiny face in his hands. This is bigger than anything we've faced. Are you okay if we reach out for help together? With wide, trusting eyes, Mia nodded. We have to try, Daddy. For Kyle. Richard stepped forward, suddenly feeling the unity of the room where once there was tension. Now there was commotion as whispers turned into conversations. Neighbors began to gather, forming small groups, and it ignited something powerful against the backdrop of anxiety and palpable fear. Let us organize a fundraiser tonight, someone shouted from the back. We can put together a bake sale, a raffle, whatever it takes. The ideas unfurled quickly. Excitement ignited as energy pulsed through the room. Richard felt compelled to take charge, a force urging him forward. We'll put out flyers, reach out to everyone. Let us get this rolling. Every cent will go to Kyle. As he spoke, Billy's eyes softened slightly, touched by the growing surge of determination around her. If we can get the local news involved, people will respond. Hope blossomed alongside the urgency. Together, the community could become a lifeline. Richard stole a glance at Jake, who still wore that deep crease of doubt on his face, but also a flicker of shared purpose. Just as they began to make plans, the sadness in Mia's face broke through the crowd's buzzing energy. Can't we do it now? We need to save him now, she cried, drawing everyone's attention back to the gravity of their situation. Richard felt a tugging in his chest. We will, Mia. Just trust me. Pledges to pitch in poured in, and for the first time since he entered that center, Richard felt a swell of belonging instead of isolation. But doubt still lingered, a shadow waiting to pull them back when the light started to shine. As they continued to plan, the sounds of determination wrapped around them like a cocoon. But in the back of Richard's mind, a question loomed: would it be enough? When it came down to saving a life, hope was vital, but reality could pull the rug out from under them at any moment. And just then, Jake's phone buzzed in his pocket, startling everyone into silence. He glanced at the screen, his eyes widening with fear. Is the hospital? I have to take this. All eyes turned to Jake, hearts pounding with anxiety as he stepped away to take the call. What news awaited him on the other end, and would it change everything? Jake stepped away from the bustling group, his heart racing. The room felt like it was closing in on him, the murmurs of community efforts fading to a dull thrum as he raised the phone to his ear. The voice on the other end was smooth yet tinged with a seriousness that sent chills down his spine. Mr. Matthews? The nurse said. I have an update on Kyle's condition. He swallowed hard, forcing himself to listen, each word hanging suspended like an aching weight in the air. What's going on? He managed to ask, his voice barely above a whisper. He is stable for now, but we need to discuss his treatment options and the charity run can help, she explained, but something in her tone made his stomach drop. However, the doctors are concerned about time. We can only hope this community raises the funds necessary before the situation escalates. Jake clenched the phone harder, feeling the heat and panic start to stir again. He needed to keep it together not just for himself, but for Mia. She was counting on him just like Kyle was counting on them all. Thanks for the update, he said, cutting off the conversation before he heard anything else. He didn't want to know the details of what might happen if they didn't raise the money. As he stepped back into the room, the chatter buzzed back to life, but it felt different somehow. Richard was at the center, hands flying as he outlined a plan, suggesting ideas of a talent show and a community dinner. Yet no matter how many ideas flowed, Jake couldn't shake the weight on his heart. His eyes searched for Mia, who stood close to Billy, gazing up at the nurse as if she could summon magic to save Kyle. The image stung, a reminder of how fragile their situation was. He pushed through the crowd, kneeling to meet Mia's eyes. Hey there, Pumpkin, he said softly, forcing a smile. You okay? She nodded, but it was the tremor in her voice that echoed her fear. Is he going to be okay? Daddy? Can we save him? Her small hands tightened around his, and he felt a wave of emotion hit him. We're going to do everything we can to help him. Promise. Mia's eyes lit up a little, but Jake could see the worry still etched on her face. A promise felt like a fragile thread, easily frayed by the weight of reality. The adrenaline from the earlier chaos started to settle. People began brainstorming again, their laughter and excitement resuming. But Jake stayed back, heart racing as he wondered if they could actually pull this off. He spotted Richard talking with some locals, and a thought occurred to him. I need to help, he told Mia, standing up. Stay here, all right? Don't leave me, she called, fear creeping back into her voice. Jake stepped into her line of sight, kneeling again. I have to go help Uncle Richard. It's important, but I'll be right back. He brushed a stray hair from her face, giving her a firm nod. Okay, she whispered, returning to Billy, who bent down to comfort her. Jake turned away and sprang back into the fray. He approached Richard, who was gesturing wildly to map out logistics. Hey, we need to act fast, Jake said. What can I do? Richard turned, seeing the fervor in Jake's eyes. We need volunteers to spread the word. The more people we reach, the more funds we can raise. We might even be able to get some local businesses involved. Okay, Jake nodded, already brainstorming who to get involved. I know people from the old neighborhood we can reach out to. Maybe my friends from college can pitch in. Richard's face lit up, and Jake felt a new surge of energy course through him. Exactly. We can build a whole network, social media. Let us get the word going. As they strategized, Jake felt a sense of purpose sharpening. Each minute that passed showed there was still time, a glimmer of hope sparking in the darkest hour. But a nagging feeling stuck in the back of his mind. Could they really rally enough support in time? With thoughts racing, Jake forgot about his own reservations for just a moment, consumed by the hope that they could make a real difference. Just then, the atmosphere shifted as Mia's voice rang out. Again. What if we all just went to the hospital now? Gasps of surprise echoed around the room, and all eyes turned back to her. It was a simple idea, yet it stirred something powerful in the hearts of the crowd. Would the hospital hear their plea? Would they listen? In that spin of emotions, a new sense of direction took shape, but Jake could feel the weight of uncertainty closing back in. As he glanced at Richard's resolute face, he wondered what they would do next. Could a gathering of hope and determination actually change the fate of a boy? Jake felt the energy in the room shift as Mia's words lingered in the air, their weight impossible to ignore. The shocked faces of the adults reflected a mix of hesitation and disbelief. Could they really just march to the hospital? It was a wild notion, but there was something undeniably beautiful about it. Richard's eyes darted to Jake, searching for guidance. Should we do it? I mean, it could be a long shot, but Jake could hear the undercurrent of hope in Richard's voice. It was what everyone needed right now, a spark to ignite their passion. He straightened up, scrunching his brow in thought. Why not? If we all come together, they have to listen, right? A show of support might make a difference. People began murmuring, each whisper building momentum. The idea of all heading to the hospital as one massive group was simple yet profound. Jake felt his heart race, a mix of excitement and fear coursing through him. Okay, Richard shouted, rallying the crowd. Let us do this. Grab signs. Grab your friends. We're going to show our support for Kyle. Within moments, the room erupted into action. People dashed around, pulling together makeshift banners and posters. A few hastily drawn messages of encouragement filled the air. We believe in you, Kyle, and you're not alone. Jake stood back for a moment, watching the flurry of activity. He spotted Mia with Billy again, giggling as they decorated a big piece of cardboard with glitter and bright markers. Her little fingers danced across the surface, and for a fleeting moment, her fear seemed to dissipate. That image filled him with hope, a reminder of the innocence they were all fighting for. Hey, Pumpkin, he said, kneeling beside her once more. You're doing great. I want him to see this. Mia beamed, holding up her sign proudly. It has to be big enough for Kyle. Believe me, he'll see it. Jake assured her, his heart swelling. We all will make sure he knows how many people care. Within minutes, the room was buzzing with a plan. Richard ushered everyone through the exit, and Jake felt adrenaline spike in his veins as they began their trek toward the hospital. He glanced over at Mia, her small hand gripping his tightly. What she didn't know was how much they were all counting on each other now as they marched. Jake couldn't shake the feeling of urgency pressing down on him. Could they really change something? Would this act of solidarity make a difference? The crowd gained momentum as they turned onto the street, voices rising in song, "We all stand together." The melody filled the air, wrapping tightly around them like an invisible blanket of hope. Jake listened to their voices, feeling more inspired than ever. But as they drew closer to the hospital, doubt began to creep in again. Would the nurses and doctors appreciate their noise, or brush them aside? He willed himself to shake it off, focusing on Mia, who was renewing the energy in the crowd with her bright laughter. "We're gonna save him, Dad," she called out, and he felt her belief wash over him. A sunbeam breaking through the clouds. Just as they arrived, the hospital loomed in front of them, its imposing structure casting a shadow over the gathering. "Okay, everyone, let us make some noise," Richard shouted. And with that, the crowd erupted in cheers, voices echoing down the streets. Jake felt the intensity rise within his chest. This was the moment potentially to unite not just for Kyle, but for everyone in need of hope. He glanced back at Mia, who was bouncing with excitement, her voice ringing out above the rest, and he couldn't help but smile. But just as he started to feel the power of their movement, a stern figure appeared at the entrance, arms crossed, eyes narrowed. The hospital security guard was watching them closely, and Jake's heartbeat quickened. "Guys, I think we're gonna need a miracle," Jake whispered, his eyes darting between the crowd and the guard. Would their show of support be met with open arms or hasty refusals? And what about Kyle? With desperation clawing at him, Jake stood tall, gripping Mia's hand tighter. With tension mounting, little did he know, what would follow next would stretch the limits of their hope beyond anything they could have ever imagined. The security guard approached the group, his expression unreadable. The cheers faded, replaced by a nervous energy that hung in the air like a thick fog. Jake felt his heart race as he stepped forward, wanting to make a connection that could shift the guard's perspective. "Excuse me, sir," he called, raising his hands slightly to show he meant no harm. "We're just here to support Kyle. He is a friend to all of us. We believe this will help him." The guard's brows furrowed deeper, skepticism flickering in his eyes. "You can't just yell outside a hospital. It's disruptive." Richard stepped in, clutching his homemade banner. "We're not here to disrupt. We just want to show Kyle he is not alone in this fight." A thick silence followed. Jake could see several onlookers peering curiously from the sidewalk. He needed to act to draw attention not just to their protest, but to Kyle's situation, a life hanging in balance. Mia tugged at his sleeve, her voice delicate but unwavering. "Please, mister. My brother needs a miracle. We just want him to know we love him." She stepped forward, holding her glittery sign high above her head. Jake felt the weight of every eye on Mia. There was an undeniable power in her small frame, her innocent plea wrapping around the crowd's hearts. The murmurs surged again, a collective breath of sympathy washing through the gathering. The guard's expression softened just a fraction. Jake noticed it. Perhaps there was a way through this. "Sir, maybe you can understand the urgency. Our friend is in there, fighting for his life. This support means everything to him, and we just want the staff to know that they have people rooting for them too." For a moment, the guard hesitated, and Jake seethed with anticipation. He sensed the tide was turning. "Mia's right," laughed a voice from the crowd. It was one of the local teachers. "She has got a brother, and we all have brothers, sisters, people we love. This hospital has always been a place where hope thrives. Maybe it's not just noise. Maybe it's the voice of a community." With the sound of agreement rippling through the group, the guard's arms slowly lowered. "I get that. Just keep it down a little. It's a hospital after all." Relief washed over Jake. "Thank you," he replied, heart racing high with gratitude. "We promise to keep the noise respectful." As the guard turned away, the crowd exploded with renewed energy. Jake watched as Mia grinned brightly, the corners of her eyes crinkling in joy. "We can do this," she shouted, and the crowd echoed her sentiment. Their spirits lifted. With renewed determination, they began chanting, "Kyle! Kyle! Kyle!" Each shout reverberated around them, building a connection that felt tangible. Families joined in, and the warmth spread like wildfire. But in the midst of their revelry, a sleek black limousine rolled up and stopped at the curb. The driver stepped out, adjusting his suit before opening the door. A figure emerged, and Jake couldn't believe his eyes. The chatter in the crowd halted as the billionaire known for his philanthropic efforts stepped out, his eyes scanning the gathering. Jake's stomach tightened. What was he doing here? And why now? The man took a step forward, silence falling like a curtain. "I heard about what's happening. I think I might be able to help save Kyle." Jake's heart thundered in his chest. Hope surged like a raging river. Could this be the miracle they all needed? Everyone held their breaths, waiting for the next words to escape the billionaire's lips. "Let us talk inside." Jake turned, his mind racing with possibilities. Would this billionaire have the power to change everything? Would a chance conversation lead to the breakthrough they prayed for? As the man walked toward the hospital, Jake felt an electric charge in the air, the crowd anxiously waiting to see the fate of Kyle's future unfold before them. In that moment, he wondered, could the arrival of an unexpected figure truly turn the tide, or would hope slip through their fingers once again? Jake exchanged glances with Mia, who was still buzzing with excitement as she lifted her sign higher. The unexpected arrival of the billionaire felt surreal, like a scene from a movie. He couldn't shake the weight of uncertainty, but he knew they had to cling to this flicker of hope. With the crowd buzzing like a beehive, Jake felt a wave of determination wash over him. He moved closer to the hospital entrance, sensing a rush of adrenaline cascading through his veins as they followed the billionaire. A few onlookers had pulled out their phones, capturing the moment, breathlessly watching this pivotal encounter unfold. As they stepped into the cool, sterile lobby of the hospital, the tension shifted. The bright lights illuminated the worried faces of the staff and visitors, and for a brief moment, Jake felt exposed. But he straightened himself. This was about Kyle, about bringing him home. Inside, the billionaire introduced himself with the calm demeanor he was known for. "I'm Ethan," he said, his voice steady. "Let us discuss how I can assist Kyle. I've heard he's facing some challenges, and I might have the means to help." Jake watched as Mia's eyes widened, her youthful hope shining through. But the reality of Kyle's situation pressed around them like a heavy fog. "Thank you, but what can you really do?" Jake blurted out, urgency lining each word. "This isn't just a financial issue. This is life we're talking about." Ethan nodded, his expression unwavering. "I understand. It's more than just money. It's about bridging gaps in care, exploring every option." He shifted his gaze to Mia, kneeling to her level. "And you, little one, you showed great courage out there. Your voice matters, and it has brought us here." Mia beamed. The connection he made filled the room with warmth. It felt as if hope had taken tangible form. Jake cleared his throat. "What do you need from us? How can we support this?" "Let us gather what we know about Kyle's condition," Ethan replied, his tone all business now. "I'll have my team coordinate with the doctors here. We'll look into options that could change everything." The reality of it hit Jake like a wave. Was it possible that this meeting could lead to real solutions? But lingering doubts gnawed at him. Would the hospital staff be willing to work with someone like Ethan? But what if they refuse? Mia's innocent voice broke through, and the room fell silent. "They won tea." Ethan's response was swift and firm. "The hospital is built on compassion, just like your gathering outside. They want to help Kyle as much as you do." As Mia nodded, encouraged, Jake felt a mix of hope and concern. Would they really find a way to save Kyle? And what would it take to sway the hospital staff into action? He could see the gears turning in everyone's minds. Families gathered around, whispering among themselves, the initial excitement morphing into cautious optimism. Just then, a nurse approached, her face etched with concern. "I heard we might be having some important discussions here. Is everything all right?" Jake took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Ethan thinks he can help Kyle. He wants to work with the hospital to figure things out. Ethan strode closer, extending his hand in a firm shake. I'm ready to discuss options. Let us save this young man's life. The nurse glanced from Jake to Ethan, hesitation briefly flickering in her eyes before she relented. All right, let us get the doctors. And just like that, a sliver of possibility opened up. But as they began to gather crucial information, Jake couldn't shake that nagging feeling of doubt. What if they couldn't find a solution? What if Kyle's condition was more severe than they realized, and they were just grasping at straws? As they moved toward the conference room, Jake looked back at Mia, who was now absorbed in a quiet conversation with Ethan. Her tiny hands fidgeted on her sign, a reflection of her doubt, a depth of emotion too heavy for a girl her age. He realized, no matter what happened next, they were all fighting for something far beyond themselves. They were fighting for family, hope, and time. Would time be on their side? Would the people in this hospital rise to the challenge and embrace Ethan's offer? As they stepped into the room, a new wave of tension hung thick in the air. The conversation that was about to unfold could make all the difference for Kyle. Their journey was far from over, and Jake couldn't shake the feeling that the hardest battles lay ahead. Would they be able to confront the obstacles together, or would they find themselves shattered under the weight of unanswered questions? Ethan's footsteps echoed in the conference room, amplified by the clinical silence that cloaked the space. His presence brought a strange mix of authority and gentleness, a direct contrast to the sterile atmosphere laden with anxiety. Jake took a seat, his heart pounding. The stakes felt higher than ever. Mia darted glances between Ethan and Jake, her innocent face showing worry that shouldn't belong to someone her age. Will it really work? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Jake met her gaze, trying to muster confidence for both their sakes. I believe it can. He has got a plan. The room began to fill with medical professionals, their expressions a blend of cautious skepticism and professionalism. Doctors settled in, papers rustling, the air thick with the weight of responsibility. As they assembled, Jake felt an odd mixture of fear and resolve. Thank you for coming, Ethan began, his calm yet commanding voice breaking the silence. I know we're all here for Kyle. Let us work together to find a way forward. The lead doctor, a stalwart figure with lined eyes that revealed years of experience, nodded slowly. I respect your willingness to help, Mr. Ethan. But this won't hinge on financial support alone. Our priority is Kyle's health. Of course, Ethan replied without flinching. Our main goal is to give Kyle the best chance. I want to hear everything, the good, the bad, and then explore the options. The doctor started outlining Kyle's diagnosis, describing complex medical terms Jake barely grasped. He pushed through the noise, focusing on Mia's worried face instead. Each word from the doctor felt like a hammer against his resolve. Would they really come up with something? Or would they leave no stone unturned only to find darkness looming? Mia's small hand squeezed Jake's, a tether in a swirling storm of emotion. Do they really care? She asked softly, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. Listen, Jake replied gently, they're here because they care about kids like Kyle. They want to help. With every new complication discussed, Jake's heart sank further. But then Ethan spoke again, shifting the energy in the room. What if we explore advanced specialty care? Involve leading specialists who can provide insights. No patient should face limits when it comes to their life. The doctors exchanged glances, the flutter of intrigue igniting within the group. It's unconventional, one doctor hesitated, but if you can bring in specialists, we could consider it. Ethan's gaze remained steady, transmitting determination. I can make those connections. My network is extensive. We'll find a way to break the mold of traditional limitations. For the first time, the doctors began to lean forward, engaged. Hope flickered like a candle soon to grow, but the path was still littered with uncertainty. Would the higher-ups approve of this unconventional route? Would they embrace the change? Mia's hand squeezed Jake's tighter, as if sensing the collective shift. Can we save him? She asked softly, her small voice quivering with unimaginable weight. Jake offered a smile, though it felt fragile. We're doing everything we can. But even he could feel the chasm of doubt cracking beneath their feet. As discussions continued, laden with clinical details and questions that begged for answers, moments of hope emerged. Ethan's suggestions sparked renewed energy, and the once swelling tension morphed into collaborative dialogue. It was a dance teetering on the edge of possibility. Finally, after what felt like hours, a glimmer burst forth when one doctor agreed, "Fine. Let us push for a consult. Call in the specialists. We're willing to explore this route if you're truly committed." Jake caught Mia's eye, relief flooding through him as her face lit up with a spark of joy. But just as quickly, doubt crept back. What if the specialists had no solutions? What if they only added to the labyrinth of despair? As they wrapped up, Jake couldn't help but think of Kyle. Even if hope appeared to rise, would it be enough to withstand the looming darkness? When they stood to leave, a sudden alarm blared through the hospital, cutting through the hope like a knife. Everyone paused. The uncertainty in the air thickened. What was that? Mia whispered, fear carving her features once more. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. I don't know. And with that, the atmosphere shifted, leaving them on the precipice of a new crisis. Would this alarm signal an urgent intervention for Kyle or something worse entirely? The alarm blared through the hospital like a siren's wail, reverberating off the sterile walls and jolting everyone from the fragile hope they had just begun to weave. Jake's heart raced as he looked around the room. The faces of the doctors had turned serious, their concern palpable. What's happening? Mia's voice trembled, the innocence in her question starkly contrasting with the chaos unfolding. Ethan stepped forward, trying to catch the attention of the lead doctor. What does that mean? Is it about Kyle? The doctor's expression darkened, his eyes scanning the monitors. There seems to be a rapid increase in patient emergencies. We need to act fast. As the doctors began moving briskly, Jake felt the world tilt once more. Everything they had built up in that room, the flickering hope, the meetings, the plans hung in the balance, poised at the edge of an unseen cliff. Panic settled into his chest, squeezing tight, as Mia clutched his hand even more desperately. Kyle, can he wait? Jake asked, the words catching in his throat. He needs to be prioritized, the doctor replied, his voice steady but urgent. Let us hope this is just an alarm malfunction. Jake turned to Ethan, whose body tight with focus seemed to absorb the chaos like a shield. Ethan met Jake's anxious gaze. I'll speak to the administration. We need them to prioritize Kyle no matter what. Mia looked between them, vulnerability etched on her small face. What if they can't? Her voice wavered as she tried to whisper it, fearing the answer as much as asking. We have to believe they can, Jake said, forcing a smile that felt brittle. He glanced at the closed door, where nurses and doctors filtered in and out like shadows, all rushing against the tide of uncertainty. Minutes felt like hours as they waited, bodies tense in the tense silence. Then, out of the chaos, the doctor returned. A single look told Jake everything, that whatever the alarm had announced was serious. Everyone, the doctor said, voice firm, there's been a cardiac emergency in the ICU. Critical patients have taken precedence. We need you to understand. What about Kyle? Ethan interjected, his voice raising slightly over the doctor's comprehensive tone. He can't fall behind. You said you would explore options for him. The doctor held Ethan's gaze, a mix of empathy and professionalism etched into their features. I understand your urgency, but we must ensure that all patients receive the care they need. We have a system. Ethan's eyes flared with determination. Every minute matters, he replied, his tone no longer gentle. I have resources. I can bring in the best people. We need to mobilize the moment we get the green light. Or we can join our efforts, Jake added, feeling a swell of courage rise between them. We can talk to the administration. If there's a chance to save Kyle, we can plead his case. Mia squeezed Jake's hand, her innocence barely holding up against the weight of reality. Yet she was watching, absorbing everything around her. Okay, the doctor conceded, but be discreet. I can only move so far without approval. As they turned to head down the hall, the alarm fading into the distance, A sense of urgency gripped Jake's insides. It felt like time was slipping away, like grains of sand falling through his fingers. Ethan led the way, but Jake couldn't shake the feeling that they might be running out of chances. With each step, he felt urgency amplify. With each door they passed, he felt the weight of every plea echoing in his mind. They reached the administration office, where a few serious-faced individuals were gathered, discussing the chaos. The tension in the air mingled with the sterile scent of disinfectant that hung everywhere. Clearing his throat, Jake stepped forward. "We need to talk about Kyle. He's in need of immediate attention." The hush that fell over the room seemed heavy. With eyes reflecting the tightrope of life and death they were all walking. Just as someone started to reply, another alarm rang out, different but equally alarming. "This isn't over," Ethan murmured, determination flooding his voice again. But in that moment, joy and anxiety collided within Jake. Would they find a way to bring Kyle to safety swiftly? Or had they just stepped into something far more enormous than they had anticipated, ushering in challenges they could never have prepared for? As the sound echoed, all Jake could think was that time was running fast and they had to act before hope became a distant whisper. What lay ahead would demand something nothing could prepare them for, and the question hung thick in the air. Would they be able to save him before it was too late? Jake's heart raced like a wild stallion as the urgency hung thick in the air. The sharp, mechanical buzz of the alarms still echoed in his ears, drowning out the chatter of the hospital staff around him. Every tick of the clock seemed to remind him of the precious time slipping away, dragging his hopes along with it. "We need to act fast," he urged, stepping closer to Ethan, who stood resolute and focused. Together, they approached the administration desk, where a few hospital administrators had gathered, their expressions serious. "We're here for Kyle," Jake said, trying to keep his voice steady. "He needs immediate attention. There's a possibility that outside resources could step in to help." Ethan, pulling in a deep breath, added, "Together we can ensure that he becomes the priority. We have to be his voice." The administrators exchanged glances, weighing their options. Tension filled the air. It was heavy, thick with unsaid fears and unshared pains. "Mr. Ethan," one of the lead administrators finally said, "we appreciate your offer, but we cannot prioritize one patient over others. The ICU is overwhelmed, but we have protocols in place. Each situation is reviewed fairly." A gut-wrenching despair washed over Jake. "But Kyle is going to lose his chance if we don't do something and do it now," he shouted, his voice cracking under the weight of his desperation. Mia, close by, clutched her sign, her little fingers trembling. "We love him," she cried out, her innocence piercing through the chaos. "Please, don't let him down." Her heartfelt plea sparked something within the room. The icy demeanor of the administrators began to thaw. Heads turned, eyes softened, and for a fleeting moment, Jake saw glimmers of compassion. A shared humanity flickered in their gaze. "Let us consider a unified approach," Ethan proposed, unwavering. "There are lives at stake here, and cooperation will save more than just Kyle." Another administrator spoke, more compassionately this time. "If there are additional resources available, we can explore that, just not at the expense of protocol." "Then let us do it together," Jake urged, his heart pounding, emboldened by Mia's shining hope. "Let us rally everyone inside and outside these walls. We may have started out as strangers, but we share a common goal now. Together we can make waves." Just then, they heard the muffled shouts of encouragement from the crowd, still gathered outside. The community had joined efforts, displaying colorful signs of support, chanting Kyle's name with fervor. It sent an electric charge through the air, an undeniable power driving them all forward, united by love and humanity. Jake looked out the window, seeing the supportive faces of friends, neighbors, and family all concentrated on one tiny boy fighting for his life. "Look," he pointed to the scene outside. "They care. Kyle matters, and so does our fight for each other." The administrators glanced back, the roar of unity becoming impossible to ignore. "All right," one finally relented. "Let us gather more support. If the community shows this level of commitment, we will work to assess Kyle's needs more urgently." As the room buzzed with renewed determination, Mia turned her hopeful eyes to Jake. "Daddy, does that mean we can save him? Let us do everything we can to make it happen." "Pumpkin," Jake replied, kneeling down to meet her gaze. "We will fight together." With each passing moment, the air filled with renewed hope, like a chorus of determination rising together. They began to make plans, lists of specialists to contact, community fundraisers in motion. The gears of change were churning, each piece linking together to give Kyle a lifeline. Minutes later, something unexpected happened. The alarm bells quieted across the hospital, replaced by a softer tone, a sign they felt in their bones. Was it a sign? Was something changing in Kyla's favor? And then it happened. A nurse appeared, eyes glistening with the hope and determination they had instilled in her. "We need you guys. Right now, Kyle is stable, but we must move." "Does this mean—" Jake felt his breath catch. "Yes." She nodded. "Your efforts are enough to push him higher on the list. We can consult with the specialists, and soon." A wave of emotion washed over the room as cheers erupted, drowning out their fears. Mia's wide eyes sparkled, tears of relief cascading down her cheeks. Jake pulled her into a warm embrace, feeling her tiny heart race against his own. "We're doing this. Together, we are doing this for Kyle." The immense weight that had been suffocating him lightened, exploding into a joyful realization that their voices had been heard, and community tenderness had turned into greater power as they moved collectively toward the ICU. Hand in hand with shared hope, every step felt like a march toward victory, a profound transformation woven between their hearts. In the days that followed, the community rallied like never before. Fundraisers flourished, support networks blossomed, and hope became palpable. And finally, through the unbreakable bond of family and community, while the last flickers of despair began to dissipate, a miracle, once uncertain, turned into reality. Kyle received the treatment that could save his life, and the love of a community pulled together against the harsh tides of fate proved to be the strongest medicine of all. In that moment, Jake understood far beyond the bounds of despair that together, they were powerful. Together, they triumphed over darkness, learning the true essence of hope, family, and the magic that happens when love binds us all. The mission didn't just stop with Kyle. It became a foundation, one that transcended barriers and crafted a shining path for every individual in need. Because in Cedar Grove, this was just the beginning. And that glowing bond? It was more than a story, it was a call to action that wouldn't let them fall apart again. As the journey continued, Jake smiled at Mia. "We've built something special here, haven't we?" Her luminous eyes crinkled with joy. "Yes, Daddy. We did it together." Jake couldn't agree more. Amidst all the hardships, they had uncovered something beautiful that belonged to everyone. This was their story. This was a forever kind of love. Now, as the closing credits rolled, let me tell you what you need to do right now. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that tug at your heart and inspire your soul. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show how these moments matter to you, because they truly do. Comment your reactions and feelings about this ending. How did it touch you? And lastly, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation, and remind them that together, we can make a difference. Don't wait not even one more second to share the love. Only true fans like you understand the importance of supporting this channel through these actions.